So, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining in again. It's very exciting to be back here. And I think we're in the 60s still. So what year are we in, Dad? Remember, we're talking about Dad's life and following his journey, and it's very exciting to be following his journey. So here we are in a beautiful photo of him, and this is him in the background, and we can't see it, but he's got a fabulous motorbike in the background, but we're not going to get to that just yet. I believe we're going to be talking still about Dad in the army. We're starting back where we started off last week, or left off last week, I should say. So, Dad, tell me, what year are we in where we're starting off this time?
1955.
1955? We're not in the 60s?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Wow. Okay. So how old are you? You're still in the army, and where are we?
In 55, I was 18.
18. Oh, of course. So that's right. We were in the army in 1955. So I'm thinking this young man was in the 60s, but this is a 50s photo.
Yes, but it was getting up towards the 60s because it was about 1959, I think.
Okay, so this is a very good looking rock and roll young man. I'm taking it with the hairstyle. So tell me, what era are we in if we're talking about this? I'm just thinking, is this Elvis look?
It probably was. I remember very vividly hearing rock and roll for the first time. We were in the rack barracks at AHQ SIG Regiment, and a rack came over and said, there's a new record out, a little 45, and she put it on the record player and put the needle down onto it, and it started to play Rock Around the Clock. Well, we'd never heard anything like it. And
wow.
Every time it finished, someone would pick up the needle and put it back to the start again, and away it would go again. And we played it maybe 15 times over and over.
The one record.
The one record. It
How
was
cool is that?
marvelous. And it had repercussions because there was a smashing good sort who at AHQ SIG Regiment was on the switchboard, which was out in the open, just about into the office area, into the open area, the foyer of the office. And I was chatting her up one day, and I said, do you ever go out? And she said, I'd love to go out. There's a new Elvis Presley movie on, and I'd do anything for someone who would take me to that. And I thought, here's your chance, Cole. And I said, I'll take you. Take you Tuesday night to St. Kilda. So we went to St. Kilda, and we sat there holding hands until the movie opened. And it showed Elvis, the first movie he'd ever made, walking behind a plough, ploughing a field. And
what was the movie? Do you remember?
Love Me Tender.
Love Me Tender. Oh, I love that movie.
And his brothers were riding home from the war, from the American Civil War. And I had to say it, and I said, which one's the mule and which one's Elvis?
No.
Pulled a hand out of mine, and that was the finish.
But that was the end of the date.
Yeah, we got back together again later.
Okay.
Very well together. It was a wonderful era. And I always remember I did the electronics course down there at Balcombe, and then I went to Rockbank, to the receiver station there, and found that very, very boring working in a receiver station. There was nothing to do, shift work, and you were bored out of your mind. So I volunteered to go to the field force, and I went to the field force up in Sydney at Holsworthy. And not long after I got there, we went away to jungle training up in the Youngala Range, they called it, out west of Mackay. But it was fantastic up there. And all the time, of course, I was going home and coming back again, that sort of thing, to Western. And,
so this photo here is home at Western New South Wales, Australia. And so that's what, and you're very well dressed. You're a very well dressed young man in this photo, and a very tall, good looking bloke.
and selling the bike to the guy that's in there visible also, Ian Lynch. And that was another thing. I did an advanced course and went back to Balcombe again for the advanced course, a 3-month course. And while I was there, Russia launched the Sputnik, and the Sputnik was in the sky. And they put out in the paper, in the Melbourne paper, to say that it was going to go over Melbourne at 8 o'clock on the 4th, I think it was the 4th of October of 1957. So as it turned out, nearly 400 people, that's the way I assessed it anyway, turned up on the top of Survey Hill, and we watched spellbound to see this tiny silver star come out of Bass Strait and, of course, out of the Southern Ocean and fly over the top. And there was deathly silence, and we all thought, oh, my God, warfare has changed and we're in the army and this is most dangerous. This thing could drop a bomb on us. And as it went over, there was this deathly quiet from the 400 people. And a bloke called Lofty Norris said what everyone was thinking, to think that I have seen the day when man would conquer the stars.
And that was such a significant moment, that moment when Sputnik came over.
Magnificent moment. And it flew over Melbourne and we watched it disappear into the lights of Melbourne, and away it went. So
that would have been such a significant moment for you, so young, and obviously you became an astronomer, and so this would have been such, not unbeknownst to you at that time, but so influential to you later on.
Yes, it was, and it was the top technology at the time, to think that men could put a satellite up that orbited the Earth something like about 15 days.
And well before men landed on the moon too.
Well before.
Well before. So that's an amazing sight to see for young people, and obviously you're interested in that type of thing back then.
It's never left me, the magic of that moment, and the way Lofty put it, that man would conquer the stars. But you know what Lofty did? A couple of days later, alone again, like he was sort of accepted as the camp clown, he went into the Darva Hotel and he said to the barman, I'm going to break my record for drinking whiskey. And he lined up 19 whiskey shots on the bar, and he drank a whole lot of them, staggered outside and died in the car park.
Oh no, that's a surprising, I didn't expect that. On that night?
On that night. They found him dead next morning.
Oh.
Eerie. I still don't know the reasoning for it, but there was some sort of reason there. Either he was trying to destroy himself or else he was still overjoyed at what he'd said, but it was a marvellous moment, and he said it for the whole lot of us.
Wow.
Dead in less than a week.
Wow. That's a twist I did not expect. Wow.
And after I'd been in the army, I applied for and got a job with the Department of Mines doing a seismic survey across Queensland. We went from Winton right across to Rockhampton, travelling roughly along where the Capricorn Highway is, and we were doing seismic surveying in that we drill a 40-metre hole in the ground, blow a bigger hole inside it, down inside it, and then place a charge down there, a known charge with a known amount of energy, and fire it through all the strata and pick up the signal with geophones, very sensitive microphones that were laid out exactly to the surveyor's markings. And this would give us a pattern in time of the strata that was down there. And the absorption would also give you the indication of the thickness of it and the permeability, if I can call it that. And so that was a way of mapping it. And from that came all the things that are going on in the Bowen Basin now, where the where the mines are springing up all over the place in Queensland. So a lot came out of that survey for 6 months.
So contributing to that, what, nearly 70 years later?
Yes.
It's almost 70 years
and it's
ago.
still going on and will be going on for a long, long time, as long as coal isn't banned completely. And it's quite on the cards, it may be. So
yes.
I don't know how that's going to turn out.
Mm.
But that was very interesting. And when I came back from there, I got a job at Kodak. And Kodak were just starting a new factory.
So you got a job at Kodak while you were still in the army?
No, this was after I'd been on this 6-month survey in northern Queensland.
So when did you leave the army?
In 1960, I think.
1960. So how old were you then when you left the army?
2021.
2021. So why did you leave the army? What happened?
I fell out with drinking too much. I always had a drinking problem, and the army had exacerbated the drinking problem.
Okay. So because if you left at 21 and last week you said that you had to stay 6 years, you didn't stay the 6 years.
Didn't stay the 6 years.
Okay. And so you got your trade and then you left.
And then I left.
Okay. And you left because of drinking alcohol. So that boy behind you, if you could go and talk to him, what would you say to him about that time now?
I don't know. Kodak was such a wonderful experience, as was the seismic surveying in Queensland, and I learnt a lot from both of them. And Kodak, I worked there for over 2 years, but then by that time I was married and I had 2 little girls and that sort of thing.
Okay.
And anyway, it was a marvellous experience because they sent me to Taylor Instrument Company because, as they said, they'd had instrument technicians before, but the instrument technicians had come from mechanical. And so consequently, they didn't understand the electronics. Now they decided the other way around. And as soon as I saw instrumentation, I related it straight away to radio, and I was saying, oh my God, this is a feedback loop that's you see a lot in radio, and this is such and such in an amplifier, and I could see all the things in terms of electronics. And so their idea was very, very good, and they carried it on from then on.
So your work life is working out quite well. So you've travelled north, you've travelled back down to Melbourne, you've left and that was all with the army. You've left the army because of drinking, and then you've met a girl, and you've obviously married, and you have 2 girls, and I'm one of them, and because we're now in the 60s. So life has moved fast for you, and
it has moved fast. And
it has moved fast
in diverse ways, One
yes.
minute I'm in Queensland, next minute I'm back in Melbourne, next minute I'm back in New South Wales.
And you've moved back. So 2 girls are born in Melbourne. I'm one of them, I know. And so life is moving pretty rapidly, and this instrumental career that you've got going on is pretty interesting, and you're starting to get interested in astronomy, and you're meeting people and traveling around, and things are working out pretty well. And then you move back to New South Wales.
Yes.
So all of this is all happening, and these years sound like they're going pretty fast for you.
They were.
That's right.
I ended up as a supervisor in charge of 30 men working at the BHP when I was only 27. It was too young. Usually men in the supervisory role are in their 40s. But, I had the background and did it well and knew what was going on. But it was hectic work, very hectic.
Hectic. So just let me gather all that. So just for everybody to understand, because what Dad's just said is that he left the army because of drinking. He's gone back to Melbourne, and he's married. And you met your wife in Melbourne?
No, I met her in Sydney, as a matter of fact.
Just clarify that.
Took her down to Melbourne. took it down to Melbourne, and then
took it to Melbourne. Because I know I was born in Melbourne. So you had the two girls, my elder sister, Kim, and myself in Melbourne.
Yes.
And then came back to Sydney.
Yes.
And lived in Sydney, because I know I had some time living in Sydney.
Sorry?
I had some time living in Sydney. I know that. So you had some time. So I was just recapping. And then you moved and started living in Newcastle and worked at the BHP.
No, I worked, sorry. I worked at Cordall's, and because I was waiting on a job with Honeywell, the American electronics company, and I had a good job there for about 3.5 years, and then was offered the job as a supervisor. So I did a lot of work with Honeywell.
And so Honeywell, and then you're at the BHP, and this is all in the backdrop of rock and roll.
All in the backdrops of rock and roll.
Rock and roll. It's all going on at this time.
It was something that's, been out of this world, the fact that we've followed along with the advent of rock and roll, and it's still going strong.
Yeah. So, and Elvis movies are playing. So Elvis movies have happened. So here you are. Remember, we're talking about change and adaptation, and that's what I'm interested in, and your resilience. And so I'm thinking here, I've just had this rapid speed of you running around from Northern Territory, Queensland, New South Wales, back to Victoria, out of the army, into the army, or around the army, leaving the army, meeting a girl, marrying, having 2 kids, and adapting, changing. And so here you are. The resilience is incredible. And
combination of it. We left Sydney because we had no hope of getting a house. We were flat out with money.
Okay.
And a cheap house came up in Abermain, and that's why we moved back there. So,
and this is how we end up in country New South Wales again.
Sorry?
And this is how you end up back here, where your photo is taken here as a young lad. And we're back to New South Wales, country New South Wales, Hunter Valley, buying a house as a young family. And you have your third daughter, our younger sibling, Kerry, at Curry Hospital.
Yes.
Which is down the road from where this photo is taken. The beautiful Kerry Ann. No, Kerry Lee.
Been a mad whirl. And then I decided I'd go out on my own, and I started my own business in 1969, financial year 1969. So it's the 1st of July.
And now you've got 4 girls.
4 girls.
Because Kylie's born 1968?
Yes, 68.
So you've got 4 girls. So there's 4 girls now, and you've got your own business.
Yes.
And adaptation is happening.
And then we bought a house in Newcastle, and moved to Newcastle.
We moved to Newcastle.
To actually do the work there.
1969, yeah.
70 actually. We moved
okay.
To.
Yeah, 1970. All right. Well, I feel a little exhausted from your experiences now. How old were you in 1970?
30, 33, 32.
Okay, so tonight's episode has gone from you being 18 to 30.
Yes.
Wow. And you had how many jobs in that time?
About 5 or 6. A lot of country.
And how many addresses?
Queensland, through the jungles, through, oh my God, to Melbourne.
From the army to the jungles to the cities, multiple cities, to the country, to Newcastle. We've landed in Newcastle now. And you've had 4 children. You're yet to have Kieran, our youngest brother, and you've had how many addresses in this time?
About 5.
And so here we are talking, our theme has been adaptation, change and resilience, and you've landed with your own business now, and you're just 30.
Yes.
Couldn't be more resilient and ability to adapt. So we've wind it up here now, where I'm feeling a little flustered from all of these changes that you've gone on. And we'll take it from there next week, and we'll see how you go after 30.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. And let's take it from there and leave it with Cole for him to continue. But he was a very good-looking man, very tall, dark, handsome, and obviously Elvis style. And what a great dad to have looking at that. Wow. Thank you. Bye.